My name is Martin Saremski. I'm a technical support engineer and team leader here in support. And my primary focus is development and design. So everything that involves scripting, data modeling, front-end designing, that's where my focus is. And I've been with Qlik 3 years. And I'm looking forward to present you today the topic troubleshooting SAP data loading. So what to expect? We will start with some basics, some connectivity basics with QlikView and connections to SAP. Then we will troubleshoot a failing data load with the SAP SQL Connector. We will discuss more about SAP data types. We will configure some connection properties. We will then use the BEx Connector and we will learn how to avoid problems when loading data with the BEx Connector. We will discuss common troubleshooting scenarios and last but not least some takeaways. So let's get started. For those of you who are relatively new with SAP and the Qlik SAP Connector, let me briefly explain you some concept. So as you probably know, when we speak about SAP, we deal with different environments. It could be an SAP ECC environment, ERP environment, or an SAP BW environment. And within our environment, we deal with different repositories or info objects, info cubes, different objects, and different sources of data like SAP Extractor, ABAP, OpenSQL, BigQuery, and so on. So in order to extract data from SAP, we have our Qlik SAP Connector that enables to load data from SAP. And we established that through so-called function modules. So you can see that here in the middle, this is something that we provide along with our components. This is our code which will be provided in the transports when you import those in your SAP system. And of course, there's some function modules from SAP like OLAP and these OBAPI that can be used with the connectors. When we speak about the connectors, it's not only one connector. We deal with different connectors depending which source of data you want to extract data from. And you install the SAP connector on the SAP system. As mentioned, there we provide our code, the function modules, and you'll need to install the connector on your client. And within the connector package, we have several connectors. The SAP SQL connector, the OLAP connector, the BEx connector, the Extractor connector, info provider, query connector, report connector, BAPI connector, and the DSO ODS connector. In this session, we will mainly concentrate on the SQL connector and the BEx connector. So once we establish a connection with the SAP system, with our client, we can load the data, we can transform it, we can consolidate it and combine it with non-SAP related data and store it into our application or as a QVD layer and have it as a data warehouse in our BI platform. So let me show you a brief demonstration how that works. So I will show you an example. And in my example, I will use QlikView version 12.2 SR2. That's the November release. And I will use the latest connector version, the Qlik SAP Connector version 6.6. So let's get started. We'll open up a new document and go to the script editor. Here we go. That's the script editor. And here I can select my connectors, depending which data source I want to connect to. So we will use the QlikView SAP SQL connector. And I go to connect. The wizard opens. And I can now type in my host, my client, 800, the system number, and my credentials. Here I'm connecting to our test system. This is the system that our developers also use. And I go to test connection and it succeeded. Perfect. Press OK and we created a connection string. So now when we go to select, a wizard opens and we can choose our object or our table. So in this scenario we'll use VBEc. It's a pretty standard table and I can select my tables, my fields, sorry. And I can check preceding load if I want to in order to alter my field names with alias. Here we go. Now I have my script. I will comment this because we don't want to store this into a QVD. And I press reload. Of course, I need to save the document because it's a new document, SAP test, and the reload starts. Here we go. It succeeded. Great. But wait a second, that was way too easy, right? If everything would be so smooth, you would probably never call support and I would be unemployed. But lucky me, from time to times, we deal with hiccups and that's why we need to investigate and troubleshoot things. So let me show you now a different example. So here I have another application with some data already loaded. And now I'm adding a different table. Opening the script editor again to show you how my script looks like. So again, VBEc, and I'm trying to load now another table. Let's see what happens now. It's loading. And oh my God, here's the error. Here's the error. What to do now? So of course that was a forced error from my side. And now we can start our troubleshooting, right? So how do we proceed? A good way how we can start our troubleshooting is by reviewing the SAP Connector log files. And you can find these log files on C program data, Qlik custom data. That's the default location. And depending which connector you're using, you can find your logs here. In case that you use the extractor connector and you use a dedicated service for it, for the Qlik SAP network server, these log files start with servers. So additional log files that needs to be reviewed as well. And in case that you need to raise a support ticket with us, your support technician will love you when you gather these log files and send it over. So, but how do we proceed now with our error message we saw earlier? So let me show you the log file. I presented it already and I marked the error. And here we have already some kind of indication. So it says the error occurred during read. So could be maybe an error with the table. And it gives us some more hints. It says check the job in transaction SM37. And this is a transaction in SAP that we could probably check now. So let's do so. I'm opening my SAP environment. It's our test environment here in support. I go to the transaction SM37 for the jobs logs. I use the job name, which is this one here. Go back to my environment and paste it here. I go to execute And here I see a bunch of jobs failed. And let's see one of the job, what message we get here from. So I'll go to the details and it gives me some more hints. It says that a field string called LTGenTab contains no fields. Okay, that could be something with our table, that something is wrong there. So what we can do now is to go to SE11. That's another transaction where we can review our table. So let me go to SE11, where we can see the structure of our table. The table name was this here. Copy that. Go back to my SAP environment. Paste it in. And I go to display. And here we see the structure of our table with the field names, some more parameters, and the data types. And for me here in support, it's obvious what the problem is. I can see here a data type that is exotic. It's a row string. It's a byte type and a blob. And we should know that this data type cannot be retrieved with the Qlik SAP connector. So this is a problem. We'll need to exclude this field in order to fetch our information. Talking more about data types. As mentioned, some data types cannot be retrieved, which is long chart, L-row, and row string. So this is not possible. And one important note here. Since the connector version 6.1, we changed the data type handling. So the architecture changed a little bit. And this is something you need to be aware of. So when you try to upgrade your connector version, you could run into some problems when you have some scripting, some older scripting, and now the data types changed. So it could be that your data looks completely different. So it's always good in this regards to check the release note summary, what actually happened when you do the upgrade. So let me, for instance, show you how this looks like in the release notes. I have it here open, and based where you are and what connector version you want to upgrade to, you can see what happened, which new functionalities are included, which bug fixes, and so on. And this is very, very helpful. I can really recommend you to check the release notes. As you can see here, the data types, character and numeric, has been changed a little bit. So here you can find the details. And we did that in order to call the data from SAP as they are stored in SAP. So we want to basically more or less keep the format. That's why we did the change here from 6.1. And it's always good to familiarize yourself with the data you have and the tables you have and the transaction SE11, which we just reviewed. Furthermore, you have the possibility to use so-called connection string properties. And it can be used for legacy mode, so it can act like an older connector, and you can do as well advanced data type handling. So let's talk now more about the connection string properties. And I will also show you a little demonstration about that later. But about the concept, we can turn off or on certain handling, like null data or mixed mode or replace null value. Null date will, for instance, when enabled, it will give you a null instead of a string representation of full of zeros. Mixed mode will when enabled, give you a numeric value instead of a text value. But I will show you that in a demonstration. You can use legacy mode for certain data types. And as mentioned before, it will act like the older connector version. Like when you, for instance, in 5.8 and you use FLTP and now you upgrade it to 6.6, data looks different. You can turn on the legacy mode to have the old behavior. And furthermore, you can use performance, trace, and timeout settings within your connection string, like packet size, fetch buffers, buffer percentage, trace, and so on. For more information, please visit our help site. There you can find more details about that. So let me show you another demonstration now with the connection strings. And here I have an application with already some fields. Here I have FLTP data, that means floating point. And here I have also some kind of data, probably material number or order number, I'm not quite sure. But notice how it looks. And now let's go to our script. And this is the connection string, as seen earlier. When we did the connection, we got a connection string. And what I can basically do is I can turn on or off the properties by false or true. So I can change that to true if I want to have it enabled, or 1 or 0. 0 stands for false. So once again, I'd like to show you how the data looks. So look at this, FLTP, which here I have a decimal. Yeah? And here it's text, so it's on the left side. Go back to our script editor. And now I'm going to turn on mixed mode, true, and FLTP legacy to true. Save that, and I'll do a reload. Have you noticed? The format changed. So this is floating point. That means the representation is now a string representation with a scientific notification. And here we have now numeric values instead of text values. So this is something you need to be aware of when you upgrade your system. This can, of course, cause some issues when you have already some development applied, and it can affect your further development if you're not careful with the architecture and with the strings. So when you use the connection strings, there's also another way how you can set the strings, the parameters, sorry. When you go to connect, you have the possibility to use checkboxes here as well, which is a little bit easier as to see which property is in the string and to look for it. So that's much more easier here. And you have as well the possibility to use settings like packet size. That means how many number of rows should be included in a packet that comes from the operation from SAP. You can change the buffer percentage, and this has to do something with the shared memory in SAP. So when you increase that number, you will allow to have more shared memory. You can also set it to 999, to the maximum. That means this will allocate all the shared memory. But you need to be very careful here as well, because it can affect as well other jobs. And usually the default is good. So only in special circumstances try to tweak these settings to see if you can have some improvements. And of course you can set timeouts if you need to. Okay. Let's talk now a little bit more about the BEx Connector now. And common issues which we receive here in support are limitations. And I would like to show you some limitations. So one common issue is memory consumption. So if you have a BEx query that includes a big and large data set, oftentimes it's not possible to load the data because it's simply too big. You will need to reduce your data set by means of variables and filters. If your BEx query includes hierarchies, the BEx connector can only extract a flat structure. A structure with hierarchies cannot be retrieved by the BEx connector. For instance, if you have something like year, quarter, month, date, so the data below cannot be retrieved. If you want to extract the data, you'll need to have a workaround with, for instance, with the extractor connector and join it with the BEx data in QlikView. Collapse key figures. If you have collapse key figure structures in your BEx query, you'll need to change that in the query designer and set it to all no to expand it. Or if you use customer exit variables in your BEx query, you need to change that as well. There's also a limitation of 49 dimensions. So in this case, you'll need to divide the extraction into several loads. And hidden key figures is also another limitation where you need to change the display setting for the key figure and the query designer. So let me show you a little example now with the BEx connector. And maybe you can guess which error we face now. So we go here, go again to our script editor. And now we establish a BEx connection. Go to connect. Of course, I need my system information here. The host, client is 100, system number is 00, and the credentials. Go to test connection. It works, good. I go to select to the wizard. And now I can select my info provider and my query. So in this example, I will use this info provider and this query. Now it should do something. Yeah. So here we have our dimensions. So I can select my dimension. And notice here we have 4 different measures. And let's select them all. I say OK. And we want to comment that out. And let's perform a reload. Otherwise we'll cause support. Here it goes. So, field not found error. What the heck? So, do you know which kind of limitation we are facing here? I'll give you some seconds. Let me tell it to you. It's the collapsed key figure structure. And let me show you why. Here's a screenshot of the query designer. And you can see here how it looks like. So we have a collapsed structure And you now say, yeah, but I can't select it, right, in the wizard. So why is it not working? So yeah, it is a limitation, and our developers are aware of it. And this will be probably also solved in another version, but it's something that you need to be also aware of. If you have a collapsed key figure structure here, it cannot be retrieved. Okay, that was it with the BEx connector. And more information around the limitations you can also find on our help site. Yeah, we did the demo here. And now I would like to present you some common issues we face here in support. One issue could be, for instance, that you try to establish a normal connection, yeah? But the connection failed. So what to do? And here are some troubleshooting steps. First of all, check if the server is reachable, your SAP system. Check your ports, check your Windows settings, your firewall, your antivirus, and as well check the SAP log files for more information. Check as well if everything is correctly applied on the client and as well on the SAP system. So for instance, have I really used the right connection properties? Are the transport correctly applied? Are the permissions correct? And so on. Let's discuss now another issue. And let's see what we have here. A data load fails with the error message, unexpected end of data. And here you see the part of the log file. So it's basically saying nothing, right? So what to do here? As mentioned earlier, do I face any performance issues or any limitations? What I can do is I can reduce the data set by means of filters, variables. I can also validate my timeout or performance settings in the connection strings, which we have seen earlier. I can also check if I have enough shared memory in SAP. So these are things that I could investigate. I can also ask myself, does a different table or a similar table work or query? And I can compare both tables with each other. I can also check dumps or log files, not only on our end, on the QlikView end, but as well on the SAP side with ST22, where we can collect dump information, SM21 for general system errors, and SM37 for job log errors. Here another issue. After an upgrade to a newer version of the SAP connector, the connector loads wrong or different data. Why? So as mentioned earlier, I can ask myself, has something changed in the script or in the functionality of the connector? So first of all, it's good to verify your script. If nothing, perhaps I changed something and the scripting fails because I added something. And it is always good to check the release notes in terms of changed functionalities. And I can also ask myself, is the connector configured as per documentation? And have I really applied all the best practices and recommendation? And can I use connection string properties? So as mentioned before, I can use legacy mode for certain data types and see if this solves my problem. So yeah, that was it. Thank you very much. And now we come to the Q&A. Yeah, there's a question I've got here, and the question is, can we connect to SAP BW for HANA? And the question is, yes, you can. The answer is yes, you can, but you'll need a patch. So it is possible with the current connector version 6.6 for BW for HANA, but you will also need a patch, and this is something you can request here from support. So if you like, share me your name and maybe your email, or you can as well, if you have the possibility to access our support portal or raise a ticket, we can help you with that, and we can provide a patch. And it will be probably available in the new version. So in 6.7, it should be possible without a problem. Do free characteristics influence the memory consumption? It can. So, but it always depends how large your data set is. So I would always recommend to test first with a lower data set first, and then try to increase it and check as well your memory consumption on the SAP side. Another question that I've got here is, in which case do you need the BEx connector and cannot do the same with the SQL connector? So it really depends. We have different sources of data where you can connect in your SAP system. Mostly it's enough with the SAP SQL connector, but if you want to connect to BEx queries, you'll need to have a BEx connector. And BEx connector is also something that you can use only in the BW BI system. Another question that we've got here is, how long do we support our connectors? And yeah, that's a good question. So officially, we support our connectors, even older connectors, but unofficially, I would say 2 years. So if you have a really old connector like 5.6, 5.8, 5.8, we highly recommend to upgrade your system. But it also depends if you're which customer you are, how critical the issue is. So we can always find workarounds if you have some issues in your older connector version. But as mentioned, we really recommend to do an upgrade to a newer version to benefit from bug fixes and new functionalities. Another question that I have here is, will you do trainings or demos for connecting to BW for HANA, or are they already available somewhere? A good source is, of course, our community, where you can find a lot of information. Our Qlik help site provides also a lot of information. It's also really good. But you just check it out. Okay, here's another question. Why have we changed the architecture of the data type handling? I think I mentioned that earlier. So what we wanted to achieve now with the newer connector version is that we fetch the data how it is stored in SAP, and we want to keep the format. Before it was different. We had a different way of interpreting the data, and as mentioned in the presentation, this can lead to a problem, of course, because the designing changed, and some way you will probably need to adjust your scripting or use legacy mode.
Okay, Martin. I see there are a couple of questions about the launch date with the functionalities for use on Qlik Sense.
On our help site. So SAP for Qlik Sense and SAP for QlikView. And there are several options available, but we don't have the full package as with QlikView. So we have the most important connectors, I would say, available, like the SQL SAP connector, the BEx connector, the info provider connector, the extractor connector, the BAPI connector. But some connectors are missing, like the report connector or the query connector, and so on. And the reason for that is the architecture of Qlik Sense is a little bit different than in QlikView, as you know. And in Qlik Sense we use libraries, and we cannot load DLLs. If you want to use other connectors which are not included in Qlik Sense, you'll need to disable the standard mode in Qlik Sense and enable the legacy mode in order to make that run.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's all the time we have today. So once again, thank you everyone for joining, and
everyone.
have a great rest of the day.